And obviously, we've touched on goalie equipment already. Rob, you spoke about just wearing shin pads and volleyball knee pads, but how has equipment changed sort of over the years, whether it be sticks and sort of the technology behind the equipment, I guess, more?
I guess with sticks now, I mean, we were still using wooden sticks back in that early day, and I think the price, so any wooden stick was between like 15 and 25 quid. You could get a top of the range wooden stick for 25 quid. So, I mean, that's just, I think the thing is back then, I think people think about wooden sticks going by, if you went and picked up a wooden stick now at, Ice Locker, they were better than that. They're awful. I think they're designed basically to make you want a composite stick. So wooden sticks were a lot better then than they are now. If you spent 25 quid, you got a really good stick.
And you could put your own curve on it over the stove as well.
You could. Yeah, you could shape them yourself. If you got something that was a lot of the sticks had that ABS insert at the bottom. If we're playing on rough surfaces, which we did at the Northside League, like a Titan stick would last you a long time. They were certainly more durable than composite sticks now. But aside from that, a lot of people were wearing ice hockey leg pads back then. A lot, and that's probably not really crept out of the game until quite recently. Some people still are, but it's almost gone there. I think the difference was then there was nothing that you could buy that was specifically for ball hockey. Like you can get ball hockey shin pads now. You can get ball hockey gloves, or a lot of people start to wear lacrosse gloves because they're just a little bit lighter and flexible. I think that's one of the big differences. I kind of, I never imagined back then that maybe there'd be something that was made specifically for our sport.
No, thanks, good shout. My favourite equipment story was Mansell's brother. So every year at Wembley, you used to kind of go and you used to come back with kit, didn't you? You used to go and buy gloves, and we used to every Sunday with Wembley, we used to go off to, was it Skate Attack?
Yeah.
We used to go and find that, and we used to go and raid the shop, didn't we? Pretty much. And the guy, Ian Mansell's brother, was just obsessed when he with kit, really. But he just said to him, mate, I just remember it really distinctly. Went, this stick was made out of the same stuff as a space shuttle, and he was like, it was like 120 quid stick, 130 quid stick at the time, which was unheard of. It was ridiculous. I reckon he hit 2 shots with it, didn't he? And it snapped.
Yeah.
It was just brilliant, but he was obsessed with it.
Chris Ashmore had an unbreakable stick, didn't he? Remember that? And he broke it.
Was it the Alice?
It was like some sort of early. It was just when they were moving out of aluminiums into like the more composite materials, I think. And he told everybody it was unbreakable, and about 3 weeks later, he broke it.
But I don't think you can get anything nowadays that you put the blades in, can you? Do they still do anything like that?
Yeah, you can still buy composite shafts, can't you?
Can you?
Yeah, I think so. Not many people do that.
Yeah.
I bet no one carries around a blowtorch in the gear now, Rob.
No, it was essential kit, wasn't it? Back in
Harry Thurgood used to carry a saw as well in his kit.
Yeah, I was going to say, when Stu mentioned the stove, the first time I saw someone bend a blade with a blowtorch was is it Mystery in Alaska?
Yeah.
And before that, I'd just never seen it happen.
Yeah.
I just never even thought about it.
Yeah.
It just shows a generational gap.
Yeah. At least, I think it's at least a generation, Ben. I wouldn't just say it's a generation.
A generation.
I don't think it's one, mate.
Well, they were doing it down at Panthers, weren't you? Because we used to stand in the corridor having a beer, and you could. And there was that little cubby hole underneath where you sat.
Doctoring all sorts of sticks, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So the kit has helped facilitate things, and the equipment and the readily available nature.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's just more available. You couldn't get older kit. It was really difficult to get older kit.
When we started playing, Rob, the only place you could get it in Nottingham was the Ice Stadium, and they carried a very small range.
Yeah.
And then Surfside and Alpine.
Yeah, was that the one at the bottom of Mansfield Road?
Yeah,
they were to apart.
Yeah.
Now that's Tesco.
Yeah.
And they only stocked left-handed sticks, which was all right for me and Rob, but everybody else didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to venture out, there was Scrimmage over in Peterborough.
Yeah. And Skate Attack.
And then Skate Attack down in London. And that was about your lot.
Yeah.
You know, no eBay, no internet mail order or anything. You know, I used to play with sticks that were semi-broken that Panthers had chuck over the side at games.
I mean, the only reason I'm left-handed is because Johnny Putsai, well, it was played on our street because him and his missus lived. Well, his missus's mum and dad lived in our street, and he used to just bring a left-handed stick because he was left-handed. And then, so that was how I picked up a stick.
I ended up being left-handed because of a discarded stick at the Panthers, and I just took it home and put it back together as best as I could, and I just used to play around the living room.
I think maybe that's the same with me. I think it was Gary Clausen's stick.
Gary Clausen, no.
Remember Gary Clausen?
Yeah.
You got any idea whose stick yours was, Rob?
Huh?
You got any idea whose stick yours was?
No idea. It was a Cooper stick though, who became part of Bauer. Can you remember that stick you had, Stu, that was had hose pipe on the bottom of it?
Yeah.
Preserve its life.
I couldn't afford a new stick, and it was just all ratted at the bottom, so I just got a piece of old hose pipe and slit it on the bottom.
Like a blade cover.
£300.
Yeah.
Back to your DIY skills, Stu.
Well, that's it, mate. That's it. I didn't have.
I tell you what, Stu, you'd be great on a desert island.
It'd be great for knocking coconuts off as well.
Yeah.
Got some lump behind it.
So, sort of as a more general question, are there any really, really funny moments that stand out that might sometimes go under the radar? Rob, I'm sure you've got a few.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. We were playing at the Portland League, and there was a bit of a quirk in the fixtures, and we were playing Beeston. We played everybody twice, and we played them twice in a row. Friday night, and then the following Wednesday night. The first one was a 0-0 draw, if you can imagine that. I don't remember many 0-0 draws in the old Portland League. And we were all over them. We probably fancied to win, and we didn't, and we were a bit fed up about it. But it was quite a bit of bad blood in the game. It was quite physical. We played him again the following Wednesday. We had a D-man called Carl Kopinski, big tall guy. Really nice guy off the court, but he used to see the red mist a little bit when he played. And he'd had this ongoing battle with this lad who I really don't remember the name of. We called him Boris because he looked a bit like Boris Becker. And obviously, sports halls, usually fire exits in them. And this guy properly ran Carl from behind, knocked him all the way through the fire exit, and turned and was kind of chuckling to himself, walking back into the court. And Carl kind of charged out of the fire exit. He had quite long hair, so hair all over the place, arms windmilling, and a fight broke out. And all the players from both teams tried to go and split it up. And me and Stu and Martin Etheridge, who mentioned earlier, we got in there first, and some of the Beeston guys as well. They were trying to control Carl, but they couldn't really do it. Whereas we kind of pinned the other guy up against the wall. And unfortunately, I think what it looked like was that me and Stu and Martin Etheridge were holding this guy while Carl rained punches down on him, or at least that was what the referee told me afterwards. I had to do a bit of fast talking to make him realise it was a two-way fight. But basically, we looked like we were holding him against the wall for Carl to go.
Which is essentially not what we intended, but actually what happened.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that's kind of what your team was like, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, by way of background, we were mine and Stu's team, the Bruins. We were the bad boys of the league, really. Quite unintentionally, really. I think
it just escalated, didn't it?
We played at the Northside League, and we were quite a young team, and we used to get knocked around quite a bit, to be honest. And we turned up at the Portland League, and I don't think we had a bit of a feisty early game against the Towton Rangers. And there used to be a balcony there, and people would watch the game, and I remember us getting booed off. We got booed off, and it kind of just went from there.
I think the rumour, Mance, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the rumour was a little bit like you say, that the North Side, that your league was obviously a bit more like Mance says, ice hockey without the ice.
Yeah, it was a bit more.
And so, but of course, then you came over, and Eastwood were just a class hockey side, so
right.
they didn't mix it up really at all. And then first time you guys played, so you were the kind of the theory that you lived up to the reputation of what the league was going to be. So
yeah, we were, and I think in a way it led to us. We kind of enjoyed it a little bit, I'd say, Stu.
We caught it, didn't we?
Unfortunately, I think we alienated ourselves from the other teams. All the other teams were on. You know, there's a bar at Portland. People used to go for a drink after the game, and we used to go for a drink after the game. But we'd kind of be down one end of the bar, and everybody was at the other end of the bar. So
everybody.
we unintentionally we found ourselves in the role of bad boys of the league. I think that's probably fair. It was quite, as you know, Mick, you know us now, don't you? We're perfectly nice gentlemen. But at the time,
perfect.
we did have a few crazy people playing for us, didn't we, Steve?
Yes, yeah, I would say that.
I think that's fair to say.
One of the funniest things, Rob, we was talking about this earlier when I pulled that program out. Mick, you probably played in this game. I think against the Sheffield North Stars.
Yeah, was this when the people came? Well, so this was hilarious.
I don't know whether you're familiar with Portland, Ben. Obviously, Rob, Mick, and Mansar. But there was, pretty much like you've got at Southglade. There was nowhere really for players' benches. And on one side of the court at the back, there were 2 double fire exits, and basically you used to throw those open, and there was 3 or 4 concrete steps down onto the rolling streets of the meadows. And the teams would be in there. There was a little plank of wood at the front to stop the puck going out and whatever. And it was a Saturday afternoon game. Nice sunny day, so it wasn't too bad for the players playing. And Sheffield had come down to play Carlton, and me and Rob had gone down to watch and heckle from the aforementioned balcony.
It was hilarious.
And all of a sudden, these 2 meatheads just like stormed in from through one of the fire escapes. Proper finest mercenaries storming in.
I think one of them
and they went to, it was Carlton they took umbrage with, Rob, wasn't it?
No,
Sheffield. One of them had a broom handle in his hand.
Yeah, and
it looked like
sticking out of his trousers. Actually.
Yeah, and one of them pulled out like half a broom handle with like a nail through it. And basically, what had happened is that there'd been a load of kids messing around with sticks and stuff outside one of these things. And exactly what happened, we don't know. But one of these kids had gone running home to the parents and said, I've been pushed over by these guys and whatever. And they came down, come out with all this crap about, this girl had been taken to hospital because she'd been pushed over and this, that, and the other. Basically wanted blood. Me and Rob, God knows why, decided we'd go down onto the court and
to help out.
Yeah, so we went down to have a bit of a look.
I think we'd had
these 2 guys, I mean, looking back, they weren't going to do it because if they were going to do anything, they would have done it. But they were just basically like,
The hilarious thing about it was 2 blokes, one of which had a broom handle.
They were pissed off.
Sheffield had 25 people with hockey sticks.
Yeah. But they were going for it anyway. And apparently then this girl that was apparently being rushed to hospital about 2 minutes later appeared in the sports centre with a mother, totally fine. And I think the management called the police, didn't they, Rob?
Yeah. Was the game abandoned?
Did the game ever get played?
Yeah, we finished it, but because there wasn't very long left, was there? I don't think.
You won heftily, I think.
Yeah, I think we were 22-4 up or something. It was. Yeah, I think it was. There wasn't many close games when we used to play the fans of other teams.
So maybe they were Sheffield plants just trying to disrupt you and put you off your game. But yeah, it was like, what are these blokes doing here? I know we're saying that the kit wasn't great in those days, but jeans and bomber jackets weren't really featured in either Carlton or Sheffield's kit styles. So yeah, that was mildly.
That was good. We one I remember up in Manchester, and again I think we were 22-0 up or something like that, and Bob Malpass, the aforementioned Bob Malpass, was pretty he's very anti-goal. He's getting man of the match anyway, because he always thought it was his great defence that had done it. However, it was definitely anti-goal. He's getting man of the match if the score was like 22-0. So with about 3 minutes left, turned round and fired one on our own goal. So, and actually, probably his best shot he's ever had. But he was determined that the goalie was not going to have a shutout and was not going to get man of the match.
Was that you, Mance?
I haven't done it either, Mick.
Was that you, Mance? Did he shoot on you?
No, I think it was Richard one time.
It was Rich then, I think. Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine Coley would have been chuffed about that.
No. But yeah, he would. He loved that. The fight one I remember reffing, because at Portland you had to take your turns to ref, and I was reffing with Phil Moore of Eastwood, and that was Spear versus. I've got a feeling that might have been Toten as well, and the penalty bench was basically where they put the kit. So not too dissimilar from not too similar from Greasley, I guess now, but it's bigger. But so the penalty benches were in there. And I was on the opposite side, and Phil was right near the penalty bench, and we called this penalty. And the next thing, they basically, as I think you said earlier, there weren't massive amounts. So I think there was like 7 aside, probably, or 6 aside in terms of total squad, and they were all in there having a full-on brawl. And I just remember, like, I was only about 16, and Phil looked across at me, and I looked at him, and I went, I don't know what to do. And then Phil was like, just let them go. And we just let them, they just brawled it out until it finished. So we just kind of looked at each other and went like, yeah, I'm not sure here what we do.
It was also raw back then, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
And if you could go along to one of those games and you might see something that you would never see before or probably ever again, to be honest. You could see anything.
What about brawling and kit? What about Krejci in William Olds? When he had that blocker that was basically a piece of half-inch perspex that was bent up at the end, it was just it was lethal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did any of you guys play at the William Olds when they had the barbecue inside?
No, I remember.
So yeah, wasn't that a charity day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why.
We played that night on Bonfire Night, where the game was punctuated by police by sirens. And somebody had been pushed into the bonfire of the youth club that was next door. Yeah.
They did have a barbecue inside, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
While the game was going on.
Yeah. It was like a barn, though.
On the sides. It was like a barn.
I think Johnny Putside provided the meat, didn't he?
Probably did, yeah.
Hey, no free plugs, mans. No free adverts.
JT Beedham. We'll have some sausages, Johnny.
Yeah.
William Olds, where it was a bit rough and ready, wasn't it? And it was like
it was a barn in the middle of
barn attached to a youth club, and like you used to run the games were pretty rough and wild, but nothing compared to what was going off outside.
No.
And I remember one night, I don't know whether you may have been there, Rob, but we'd all rolled up, and there was I think 2 or 3 games scheduled per night, so there was 6 teams and quite a few people had come down to watch as well. And the hall hadn't been, it was like a separate barn thing, hadn't been opened up yet. And everybody was waiting outside. And there was a lot of the local youth club attendees were scuttling around. And there was one guy who was just laid down on the floor. And it was Spenno. Remember this, Rob? Darren Spencer walked down, and somebody just said of our lot, what's that bloke doing laying down on the floor there? And Spenno just messing around says, I've just sparked him out. Anyway, and this kid heard him, so he basically stands up and starts having a pop at Spenno, and for about the next half hour was threatening to stab him. I mean, this is before knife crime, basically,
It was also before 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, and there was, there was sort of like 40 hockey players all stood there with the sticks, a bit like Mick was saying with them guys, saying, look, what are you going to do, son? And he's basically like, who said they knocked me out? I'm going to stab him. I'm going to knife him. And that was before we even got on the ice. So that was fun.
Every week you'd arrive at William Olds, and as you say, like it'd be a real hotbed of the local youth just hanging about. Every week you'd walk towards the barn it was played in. Are you playing hockey? Somebody would say to you every week, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm going to play hockey.
And the kids used to throw rocks on, it was like a pitched corrugated roof.
Kids used to throw rocks on the roof.
People, boulders on it.
People used to like nick inside and switch the lights off during the middle of the game. So, you know, Johnny Mustard was just winding up for a 100-mile-an-hour slap shot that you were in the way of, and somebody switched the lights off. You know, it was just like, it was so raw. You know, I think looking back, if you look back on it now, you just thought, what were we doing? You know, it was just like, if the game wasn't dangerous enough, the place we played it in was dangerous. But yeah, you just did it, you know, because you enjoyed it.
Dilksy had his steering wheel. Oh no, that was at Portland, wasn't it? Dilksy had his steering wheel nicked.
Chris Dilks had his steering wheel nicked outside. Yeah, it all used to happen, didn't it?
In the car park,
yeah.
It was fun to say the least at William Olds.
We have spoken about it already in terms of communication and equipment and everything. But what are the major differences between then and now, or like aside from those two, I guess? Rob, from an organisational point of view, I imagine you might be closest to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we're playing, you know, previously, you know, we were just playing inside our little leagues in Nottingham, and as exciting as it was, you know, we loved it. You didn't know there was a world outside. You didn't really know if anybody was really playing out there. You know, and as I said before, we probably thought we'd invented the game, or not far off it. So I think just the fact now that you know there's a world out there of people who are playing, you know, both in terms of playing against teams from around the country, but then obviously the whole international association playing as well. So it's just the horizons, you know. I suppose that's, you know, the world's like that now, isn't it? You know, everything's more accessible. The world's a smaller place and stuff. You know, we couldn't have imagined back then playing in all the different places we play now against all the different teams, or potentially playing for your country abroad. And watching it on, you know, I mean, I'm sounding really old now, you know, but Facebook really revolutionised things because it enabled us to find other people who were playing. You know, the Wolves were playing. We didn't really know if anybody else was. Some guy who was linked to the Deck Stars got in touch and said, "We're playing this. Is this what you play?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, that's what we play." And then we started meeting up and having games at Rotherham, talking about 2008, 2009 sort of time. And then it all just exploded from then. You know, there was no national organised ball hockey before that. So it's all happened, you know, in like sort of a 12-year span. And without social media, that would never have happened. It absolutely never have happened. It meant that we, you know, and then two teams, you know, before you know it, there was South Notts Outlaws in Nottingham and Sheffield, but the team that is now the Sheffield Knights formed, you know, and then we found out there were guys in London playing it, sort of North American guys and guys from Eastern Europe, you know. We'd never have been able to do that. It'd have all still been played in small little pockets, I think. And as we found back then, every so often it had run out of steam and you'd have a couple of years where nothing was happening. I mean, it died a couple of times in Nottingham, didn't it?
Yeah.
We had a couple of phases where there's nothing or very little going on, and it's hard to imagine now it could run out of steam like that, which is brilliant.
I think the thing was, Rob, is sort of every team back then, the original teams were all sort of similar ages.
Yeah.
So you'd not got youth to carry it on once the original group of lads sort of got married and moved on.
Work and stuff, yeah.
Whereas now, sort of, you've got players sort of 15, 16, but then you've got players sort of as old as I am.
Yeah.
No, you've hit the nail on the head there, man. So, I mean, you look at the Wolves, and you know, when I first started playing regular for the Wolves, you know, the likes of H and Luke, and you know, that lot were the real young kids who were coming along and playing for the Cubs, and Danny and you know, guys like that. And then they've gone through, and you know, they're now, you know, senior players, and there's a whole raft of the younger guys, you know, right down as, you know, as Nottingham's, you know, I can see it, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not playing these days and haven't for a while, but, you know, still see what's going off extensively, thanks to Facebook. You know, the amount of junior players and the setup and the professionalism there, it's immense. So, you know, there's tier after tier after tier of those players coming in now, and it's just going to carry it.
And I think really, sorry, mate, I think really, you know, I was going through those years where, you know, there was a lot of teams. I mean, there was 2 leagues, wasn't there? You know, Portland even had a 2nd division, didn't it, for a while. There was probably upwards of 20 teams in Nottingham, and then, you know, within a couple of years, it all died, and then it got back together again with the big teams based around squads. So the Wolves and the Raiders and the Scorpions, and what was that team that played out of Southglade at the time? Nottingham Eagles and the team in Sheffield. You know, so we had that sort of bounce back, and then it withered away again, didn't it? I think maybe because we've been through that, you know, us lot, I think that's probably why the Wolves now do the things that they do. You know, it's kind of safeguards the future, if you like. You know, so all we thought about back then was the next game, didn't we? You know, it was. I imagine, you know, it's very difficult, particularly with teams like us. You know, Bestwood, who didn't perhaps engage in league matters. It was probably a really difficult job for the people running the league then. But all teams were thinking about was the next game. You know, they weren't developing players. They didn't train. You know, so.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, you know, when you go in squads with like 7 to 8, you know, 7, 8, 9 players max sort of thing, and you all turned up for your game, and then you probably went out for some beers at the weekend or at Panthers, and then that was it until the next game, wasn't it? That's how it ran. I think outside of the organisation, I know I mentioned this, Ben, when we spoke last time, I think that speed of the game for me, I think Mance sort of mentioned it earlier. I think it's 2 things with that. I think there's a lot of people who have just played this sport from the word go, so are very natural. Have got that, you know, you know, we all sort of were ice hockey fans, and whether you played other sports or not, you sort of came into it and found a way at 15, 16 years of age or whatever it was. You know, I think these, you know, like yourself, and you've played all through the age groups, but I do think that change from the puck to the ball has made a massive difference to what we do. And I mean, I remember that first session. I mean, Rob, we were there, weren't we? We got, well, if we're going to start trying to play internationally, we best start playing with the ball. And on that night, I mean, we're all like, I mean, well, I know I was one of them going, I don't know if I want to come and play with the ball. I want to, you know, I've only ever played with the puck, and it runs away too much, and there's no control. And
it was really scrambling, wasn't it, until we got our head around it.
Yeah, but it was such a change to the game, and it's made the game such a better game.
Yeah,
but when we did the Oldtimers, you know, when Phil and Kev and those guys came back, and we had that one night, those guys hated it. Can you remember, with the ball, because it was going too quick?
Yeah,
that was 8 years ago, Mick.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It did take a while to get used to the ball, and it initially, because we weren't used to it, it made the game quite scrambly. The ball was bouncing around. But I think once people adjusted to that, the speed of the game now compared to what I think because of the puck, you know, friction on the floor, it was a slower game back then, you know. And I think there's probably, you know, I mean, there's a lot of big shooters now, but I don't think the game relies as much on the slap shot as like the primary weapon as much as it did then. If you had a lot of players who could really fire the puck against the team who didn't, then it was pretty much all over, wasn't it? I think you know. Yeah. Would you agree with that, guys? You know, people who could shoot, not necessarily the slap shot, but if you had people who could shoot, that was massive. You know, not to say they weren't skillful players, but I think the game was slower, and I think a few of those skills just meant such a lot then, didn't they? Now it's a completely different game, isn't it? It's more cardio based now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that, I mean, we talked about it. There's a different running style, I think. You know, and it's that stop-start, the pace of the game, the way people are turning, the way they're completely different to what we started with. Mm. And it was get it, fire it, wasn't it, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it? You know, and no disrespect to anybody who was playing back then, but you know, you might come up against a team one night, you know, and if the goalkeeping wasn't great, you were just thinking, right, let's just get it. Let's just get it on the net. And I know that's hockey to a certain extent anyway, but it was much more prevalent then, I think. You know, if you had some big guys on D who could fire it, you were in business, no matter what.
Go right back, Rob, to the William Olds days and, you know, Willowbrook, who were the you know,
top side.
One of the top sides. You know, they had Johnny Pusteye and Chris Dilks that had got absolute cannons.
They could really.
And, you know, it was like, get the puck to Johnny or Dilksy, bang. You know, 23 goals between of an evening.
Plus, they could play as well. You know,
they could play, and they knew where to be, they knew the space.
People
but then you did have the other side with like the more finesse and skill of the Eastwood side.
Yeah, I mean, I think those Eastwood teams would actually, funnily, you know, you mentioned Phil and Kev not liking it. You know, when we transitioned to the ball and they came up and played against. I think that Eastwood Royals team would probably have transitioned far better.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they did keep possession, move it around a lot. Yeah. Other teams were much more direct, weren't they? I know we certainly played a lot more direct. You know, we had people who could fire it from the back. We had good poachers around the net, like Stu. I mean, we didn't have loads of finesse, did we? I think maybe with the exception of Andy Redgate.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Eastwood side was like, I mean, you got Kev who chased every single puck down, and Phil could pass and shoot, couldn't he? Could play, do a bit of everything, but together as a line. And then you got Housley who got that shot, quick release.
Fire it. He was really tenacious.
Yeah, they were a good side there.
Really good.
I think as a goalie, it's like really strange because when I came back, things had changed so much, sort of gear-wise. Like the body armour you wear now in goal, the gloves you wear, so much lighter, so much more protective. So that, like the shooting that sort of Dilksy and stuff used to hit, you were wearing next to nothing, and some keepers were actually scared of the ball.
Yeah.
But now you're so protected. I can't remember the last time I saw a goalie go off sort of with an injury through a shot.
Yeah.
And sort of in the old leagues, quite a lot of keepers used to get hurt quite often through shooting the ball. So sort of the gear in goals made a tremendous amount of difference. I think it's so much lighter as well, because you can't cool down like you can on the ice, but because the gear's lighter, you're not carrying so much around with you.
Yeah. That's obviously led to more British goalies coming through now, and we've got a few within the Wolves as well. So I imagine that's probably quite a large difference from.
Yeah, and I think, like someone said earlier, it's so much more accessible. Sort of to get a catcher back. Sort of when we started, then virtually everyone was playing with a baseball glove, unless sort of you came across one of the Panther players and sort of begged.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
There was no Goodrich kit sale every year then, was it? Players back in the day, the Panthers players, they'd have the same kit year after year. You know, they just.
I think we used to like hand down a bit more as well, didn't we? You know what I mean? There was more people who'd like, you know, if you got a new pair of gloves, maybe, you know, you'd not so much flog them. I mean, that's more the culture now, isn't it? With eBay now, you just like, back then you just like give them to somebody else, you know, somebody on your team who perhaps didn't have any gloves or anything like that.
You've now compiled the world's largest collection of different coloured ball hockey gloves.
People just keep giving me gloves, Ben. That's what it is.
I remember when we started the North Stars back in the late 80s, the leg pads that Daz Woolley, the netminder, had. I mean, Daz was about 6'4", and we got him off one of the, I think he was still a junior at the time, Danny Thompson, who then went on to play for Panthers for a bit. He gave us a pair of leg pads, and I'm sure they were like stuffed with horsehair or something like that.
I don't think they even had them strapped on.
Leather ones, and they weighed an absolute ton, even when they were dry.
Didn't you have to tape them on with no straps on?
You what, sorry?
Didn't he have to tape them on because there was no straps left?
Yeah, there was a couple of straps, and Danny was like a 14-year-old kid.
I can say, well, he's not very big now, so he wasn't very big when he played for Panthers, and Daz has been twice his size.
He was never taller. Daz was a tall guy.
I think something worth mentioning there, not on this subject really, that Stu mentioned earlier, that when we first started playing gym hockey, there was no recreational ice hockey in Nottingham. And it was from the gym hockey lads in the Northside League that actually the first Nottingham rec team started up, the Nottingham North Stars, even though at the time they couldn't even get any ice time in Nottingham. You were training in Sheffield, weren't you? So that team was stocked with gym hockey boys, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the North Stars started with all the gym hockey guys predominantly, and we couldn't get any ice at the old Nottingham rink, so we used to go up to Sheffield at like 10:30 on a Sunday night, up to the old Queen's Road rink, which is now the ball hockey rink when it had a sheet of ice on it, and train up there. And it was a good few years before we actually got any ice time in Nottingham. But yeah, it was born. Yeah, North Stars was definitely born out. Tim Kirk was the guy that drove it and set it up. That was born out of ball hockey, out of gym hockey in Nottingham.
Yeah,
and they're still going now. 30 odd years later.
Yeah.
And and how many rec teams are there in Nottingham now? Mance, 6 of them. Is it?
Yeah,
and I'd like to thank you for joining me and everyone who's watched both episodes. Because if you survived 2 hours with that wall behind me, then you're a braver man than most, or woman.
I don't know why Ben just turned his laptop round and sat the other way. Or is it, what's the other wall? How bad's the other wall? That's what I'm interested in.
That's just a white wall, but my desk's in there and it's massive. And it's also classic student housing. The desk is giving way. So I don't feel like I can move it.